Part 59. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Zhu. Chapter 581. Among the children of the younger generation in the family, apart from Datu, Arya has the most ideas, not to mention Feng Shi. Even Zhou Lang can't persuade her now. What's more, Lao Zhutu and Qian Shi both agreed. With their words, what is Arya afraid of? So she packed her bags early in the morning and was waiting to go with fourth uncle. Xiao Qian took time to go back home and brought back 2 jars of fish and vegetables to Zhou Lang. One was fish and the other was pork. She said, "This is still made according to the recipe Man Bao said. I have tasted it. It's quite delicious. I think you probably don't know how to cook for yourself when you're there, so bring these 2 jars of brine with you, and you can steam or stir-fry them when you want to eat." Zhou Lang went to the mouth of the altar and smelled it. There was a faint fragrance wafting out. He couldn't help taking a breath, and looked at Xiao Qian with bright eyes. "Sister-in-law, do you have any more? I'll take some more." "It's gone. How can you make so many in this short period of time?" Xiao Qian said. "You take these 2 jars first, and I will make some for you next time when you come back. This stuff can last for a long time, and it needs time to ferment. It's always fine for a month." Xiao Qian told Arya how to eat it, and then said, "There is dogwood in it, it's a bit spicy, don't let Manbao eat too much. Arya should go down." Xiao Qian asked Zhou Lang, "When will you come back next time?" "That's not necessarily the case. Anyway, Yizhu City is not far from here. It only takes 2 days to go back and forth. I must come back once a month. I also want to send some things to Mr. Zhuang and the others." Xiao Qian felt relieved and asked, "Has Man Bao grown taller? Are you going to make clothes this summer? I'm thinking of tearing 2 pieces of cloth to make clothes for her. You can bring them to her when you come back in a month." Zhou Lang didn't pay attention to whether Man Bao had grown taller, but after thinking about it, he should not be much taller after only a month or so. "So shake your head." Little Qian was relieved, and asked what color dresses were popular among the little girls in Yizhu City. Zhou Lang, how did he know that this kind of thing can be done casually? As for the new clothes, some of them are not bad. But Xiao Qian obviously doesn't think so now. She already knows how to choose flowers, so she said to Zhou Lang, "When you arrive in Yizhu City, if the young master of the Bai family sends letters back, you also send one back. Ask Man Bao what kind of suits he likes, and if he has grown taller or gained weight." Zhou Lang nodded perfunctorily, and asked, "Sister-in-law, why are you the only one back? What about sister and the others?" "People are inseparable from the shop, so your eldest sister is busy in the shop with people," Xiao Qian said. "I'm afraid that the big head will come back. He can't speak clearly, so it's better for me to come back." Old Zhou asked, "Can 11 do it alone? Her cooking is different from yours." Xiao Qian smiled and said, "Don't worry, Dad, we only sell some noodles and steamed buns for dinner today. And the uncle has entrusted someone to take care of it, so there will be no problem." Old Zhou frowned. Guan Xian still went to the store to find 11 these few days. Xiao Qian responded, and thinking that her sister-in-law's attitude had softened recently, she said tactfully, "Father, I think Uncle Guan is not bad." Old Zhou Tiu snorted coldly and said, "No matter how good it is, he is still a bachelor without a family, and he is still a soldier, no way." Zhou Lang couldn't help but look at little Qian's. He had always had a good relationship with his eldest sister, so he couldn't be more concerned. Little Qian saw that Lao Zhou was angry, so he stopped mentioning this matter, and the rest of Lao Zhou's family did not dare to speak. Even Qian Shi did not express his opinion this time. When everyone was gone, Zhou Lang couldn't help but quietly went to Xiao Qian's. "Sister-in-law, what happened to my elder sister? Didn't the elder sister not agree to him?" Xiao Qian took a look outside, and said in a low voice, "I didn't agree, but that Uncle Guan often comes to sit in the shop when he has nothing to do, and when he meets some difficult customers, he can also help us talk, come and go. Your eldest sister, the attitude is a little softer. Xiao Qian said, not long ago, he asked someone to come to his door to say goodbye, but my father flatly refused. Zhou Lang clicked his tongue and said, in this way, he still has the face to look for eldest sister in the shop. Little Qian gave him a sideways look. But Zhou Lang said disdainfully, you are really thick-skinned, eldest sister is so good, and he is a soldier, why should he marry eldest sister? At this time, Bing Yuziguan Xian arrived in Yizhu city. He and his companions went to the garrison first, handed in the official documents, and went to the street to find a restaurant for dinner. The companions complained, Yizhu city is worse than our county town, and even a meal is not included. We are on a business trip. We are subordinates who came to superiors. It's fine if we don't get kicked out. Do you still want to eat? Guan Xian found out about the streets with cheaper food nearby, and followed the path pointed by everyone. He asked about the price on the way, and finally chose a smaller shop to sit down. His companion couldn't help complaining, Brother Guan, you've been too picky lately. It's rare to come to Fukin once. We don't eat meat, even wine don't drink anymore. Guan Xian poured himself a bowl of boiled water and said, no money. The companion rolled his eyes at him. Guan Xian said, my military salary is reserved for those who marry their wives. Those of you who have already married wives know to save your money and eat mine. Where is it, Brother Guan? Didn't the Zhou family reject it? Seeing his unhappy expression, the companion hurriedly said, of course, I didn't just want to treat Brother Guan. Do many people fall in love with Guan Ji? If you want to marry a daughter-in-law, you have already married it, so I think. Guan Xian waved his hand and said, there's no fate, so didn't they all let you marry? While talking, a familiar voice sounded, as usual, give us more rice. Guan Xian turned his head to look out, and saw Man Bao and Bai Shanbao were standing outside with 2 baskets, and the shop owner took their baskets very familiarly and carried them into the kitchen. Guan Xian couldn't help standing up and saying hello, Man Bao. Man Bao turned his head to look over, seeing Guan Xian stunned for a moment, he laughed and waved, it's Brother Guan, hello. Guan Xian was smiling all over his face, and said happily, hello, hello, what are you doing? I haven't seen you for a long time and went to eat at your elder sister's place. Why are you here in Yizhu city? I followed my husband, why is Brother Guan here? Oh, I'm here to deliver the official documents, and I'll be back early tomorrow morning. Guan Xian hurriedly invited Man Bao and the others to sit down in the store. Speaking of which, they were not very familiar, but Guan Xian was very enthusiastic, after all, he was chasing his eldest sister. No. Guan Xian is a veteran who was transferred back last year. Speaking of which, his relationship with the old Zhou family has something to do with Man Bao. The next chapter is around 9 o'clock in the evening. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 582. Guan Xian was one of the veterans who called friends and made a noise on the street last year, drinking and eating meat, and he was even the leader of a group of them. Man Bao said to Yang Heshu, just get married, and then Yang Heshu tried to find a way to marry them a daughter-in-law. Of course, it was a voluntary principle, so Guan Xian, who didn't like those women, decided to go alone, and finally fell in love with Zhou 11 when he went to Qinji for dinner. It is not easy for these soldiers to marry a wife, especially they are a group of veterans who have been on the battlefield. They are old and wounded, but they have no accumulated credits to be promoted to official positions. Once there is a war at the border, they will be the first to be transferred. War. So who is willing to marry a girl with good conditions? Basically, the ones Yang Heshu introduced to them were either widows, or they were also single until very late for various reasons, and it was too late for the court to force the allocation of partners. Of course, Yang Heshu was not so domineering. He just called these two groups of men and women together and asked them to meet in the courtyard of the county government. Then arrange for two matchmakers to run around inside to spread the word. In less than 3 days, most of the newly transferred single soldiers got married. As a result, the streets in Lujiang County became much quieter, and there were no more drunken soldiers clasping their shoulders and shouting all over the street. Guan Xian and the few remaining soldiers failed to find a suitable match for themselves from the blind date meeting. Later, Yang Heshu asked people to arrange 2 more matches, and finally only Guan Xian was singled out. He looked happy last week. They were very happy when they met for the first time. Of course, this was Guan Xian's unilateral opinion. Zhou 11 didn't think there was anything pleasant about their first meeting. At that time, she didn't even remember Guan Xian. It was already February at that time, and the family started plowing the fields, so Zhou Dalan and Wu Wulang went home to do farm work, leaving little Qian and Zhou 11 busy in the shop with Datu and Dia. Although Guan Xian is a large soldier, he has a lot of money. After all, one person can feed the whole family without worrying about it. So one day, when he left the barracks, he was going to drink and eat at the tavern he frequented. When he passed by Kinji restaurant, he saw a man kneeling in front of Kinji restaurant and weeping bitterly. He stood there curiously for a while, then stopped. After a while, Zhou 11 rushed out of the restaurant with a kitchen knife, rushed past him, and slashed at the man. Then Guan Xian couldn't move his feet anymore. After a lot of noise, he found out that the man was Lu Dalan, and he was Zhou 11's ex-husband. The reason why he came here on his knees was to beg Zhou 11 to go back and marry him again. Then he knew their grievances from Xiaoqian's scolding. Lu Dalan once wanted to divorce his wife on the grounds that Zhou 11 had nothing to do. Although they reconciled and divorced in the end, the feud between the two families was settled. Lu Dalan then married a widow and gave birth to a child. According to Xiaoqian, the child was not Lu Dalan's own. So in the end it was not Zhou 11 who had the problem, but Lu Dalan. The reason why Xiaoqian dared to say that was because Zhou 11 had seen a doctor. This tone has been stuck in Xiaoqian's chest for many years, and Lu Dalan came to her without any discernment, so of course she would not let it go. He really thought that Zhou 11 couldn't get married if he hasn't married for so many years. He is so beautiful. The two sisters-in-law, one was fierce with a knife, and the other was sharp-tongued, which directly turned Lu Dalan pale and fled in a hurry. Then it was said that the brothers from the old Zhou family went to the Lu family village the next day, arrested Lu Dalan and beat him up again. No one in the Lu family dared to say anything. From that day on, whenever Guan Xian was able to leave the barracks, he would go to Kinji restaurant for dinner, and then he would talk to Zhou 11 when he looked at Kong Kong. As for Man Bao, whenever he had free time, he would sneak to the county town to eat delicious food, and the two of them got to know each other after coming and going. Guan Xian knew that this little girl was the most beloved child of the old Zhou family. Man Bao knew that this bearded soldier was plotting against her elder sister. When we met here at this time, no matter what each of us thought in our hearts, we all had smiles on our faces anyway. When the storekeeper brought out 2 baskets from the kitchen, Man Bao and Bai Shanbao lifted the lid to take a look, and after confirming that they were correct, they had to pay for it. Guan Xian immediately stopped him, took out the money and said, I'll come, now that Big Brother Guan has met you, how can I ask you to pay? Big Brother invites you. Bai Shanbao looked at Man Bao. Of course Man Bao is not happy. She doesn't know what the eldest sister thinks. How can she owe people favors in this regard? So Man Bao insisted on paying by himself. Seeing that Guan Xian's big hand kept pressing her hand, not letting her take out the money, Man Bao became a little angry, and said with a stern face, Brother Guan, I have to pay for it myself. Guan Xian was stunned for a moment, looked at her face, and was hesitating whether to persist a little longer, when Bai Shanbao took out a piece of silver from his pocket, and handed it to the shopkeeper. "Keep it on the account, and we will pay for our meal in the future, just buckle it from here." The shopkeeper responded quickly and sent them out with a smile. Guan Xian watched them leave with regret. The companion gasped and wondered, why is that young lady so imposing at such a young age? "But brother Guan, you are not doing well here. That young lady is not willing to let you settle the bill. Obviously, their family does not want to marry you." Guan Xian also sighed, "I wish I wasn't a soldier. It's probably a bit difficult, we can't put it back into the mother's womb and give birth in another place." Bai Shanbao was walking beside Manbao with a basket in his hand, looking sideways at her. "You also dislike him as a soldier?" "I don't dislike it," Manbao said, "the great Jin is guarded by them, and we are also guarded by them. Why should I dislike them?" She paused and said, "But getting married is my eldest sister's business, she has to choose this herself, and I don't know if she is willing or not. If she is not willing, I have benefited from him here, how difficult will it be for eldest sister?" Bai Shanbao nodded, thought for a while and said, "Actually, Guan Xian is not bad, so you can consider it." "You have to tell my eldest sister about this." Manbao was distressed, "I don't know what my eldest sister likes." Bai Shanbao asked her curiously, "Then what do you like? You are sisters, so you should like the same ones, right?" "That's over, brother Guan has no chance at all." "Why?" Manbao, "Because I like pretty things." Bai Shanbao, "How is it good looking?" Manbao's eyes sparkled, he thought about it for a while and then said, "It must be like a fairy, in short, it must be very handsome. I don't know now, I will tell you when I see it." Bai Shanbao took 2 quick steps, then turned around and stood in front of her, raised his chin slightly and asked, "Am I not good looking?" Manbao looked at him and said politely, "It's okay." Bai Shanbao frowned, "What's the answer? I know you too well, and I can't tell if you are good looking for a while. I guess you haven't grown up yet." "I didn't bloom, did you bloom?" Manbao said, "I didn't say that I grew up, my sister-in-law said, I will grow more beautiful in 3 or 4 years. Bai Shanbao, it seems that they are talking about the same topic, but they don't seem to be the same topic. Do I look good? Also, it said 11 o'clock, look, I will change at 9 o'clock. Finally, good night." Ha 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 ha. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 583. Since Zhou Zhoulang left, the 5 people in the first hospital didn't even cook rice. Not only did they buy ready-made food from outside, but they also had to buy the rice from the county. The 2 of them took the food back to the small courtyard, because the distance was not far, the food and dishes were still hot. It wasn't until the meal was set that Bai Erlang came out with a bald face, and the 2 of them knew at a glance that his homework was not going well, and he must have been reprimanded again. Mr. Zhuang sat down at the first seat, and seeing his listless face, he tapped the bowl lightly with his chopsticks and said, "Happiness and anger are invisible, so you should restrain yourself." Only then did Bai Erlang sit up slightly, but his face still had a frustrated expression. Mr. Zhuang didn't ask him to correct all his mistakes at once, but started calling everyone to eat. After dinner, Mr. Zhuang said, "Shanbao, we will send you to the government school tomorrow, and then you have to go to school by yourself." Bai Shanbao agreed. Bai Erlang sighed. As soon as Bai Shan went to the government school, the master put more energy on him, so sad. The next day, Mr. Zhuang sent Bai Shanbao to the government school, and Manbao and Bai Erlang also went to join in the fun. Today is the day for new students to enter the school, so the gate of the school is wide open, and anyone can enter and exit. Although there are few women who come, there are still some. Because some students come here with their families, some have married wives and have children, and some wives are worried, so of course they have to follow their husbands to have a look. There are also husbands who want to show off with their wives and specially bring them to watch the excitement. Mr. Zhuang led his 3 disciples to study in the mansion, and people passing by on the road couldn't help but look at them. There are age requirements for government schools, and Mr. Zhuang didn't meet the requirements at first glance, but the remaining 3, no, 2, are they too young? I heard that one of this year's candidates passed the exam at a particularly young age, only 12 years old. So small. It's quite young, but he was the last one to be selected. There is an open paper on the supervisor's side. Someone has read it, and the writing is very good. After finishing speaking, everyone couldn't help but turn their eyes to Bai Erlang and Bai Shanbao. Bai Erlang didn't realize it at all, but Bai Shanbao raised his chin coldly, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help but rise. Man Bao looked over generously, met their eyes, and raised his hand to greet them. Hello, brothers. All the scholars, young lady, you are being polite. Are you here with your family? Yes, anyway, they were queuing up, and Man Bao was very bored, so he just started talking to them, and introduced Bai Shanbao to them very enthusiastically. This is my second junior brother Bai Shan, who is the prefectural school he was admitted to. We're going to send him off today. When the guess came true, some scholars laughed, stepped forward and bowed hands with Bai Shanbao and said, so this is Mr. Bai from Longzhou, who lives in Kangxiaodong, Lower Yizhu. The young man at the side immediately followed up and said, I'm in Ziaz's Huzan Grui. Bai Shanbao also returned the gift, Longzhou Bai Shan. He blinked, and although he was a little embarrassed, he still asked, do you know me? Kang Xiaodong said with a smile, although I haven't seen it, I've heard of it, and we have seen Brother Bai's test paper from the supervisor. Your answer to Shenmin is very good. Some people commented that you are the best in the audience. It's just a pity that he miscalculated the big question in the back. In fact, if he only wrote the first half, I'm afraid he won't be 150. Although everyone didn't say it, they guessed it in their hearts. If he hadn't answered the last question and seemed too arrogant, then his ranking in the top 100 should be no problem. When they read his papers, they felt that Bai Shan was an arrogant person, but when they saw him today, they felt a little cold at first, but after a few words, they found that he was as lively as most teenagers. Just a little proud. But he also has the capital of pride. After all, who can write such an article at the age of 12 and still be admitted to a government school? Mr. Zhuang smiled and watched his disciples make friends, and reached out to stroke his beard. Kang Xiaodong was also very curious about Man Bao, mainly because she called Bai Shan junior brother just now, so he looked at her, are you senior sisters and younger brothers? In fact, his eyes could not help but drift to Mr. Zhuang. Man Bao nodded, happily introducing her husband and another junior to them. Kang Xiaodong and Zhang Rui were overwhelmed with surprise. They only took one look at Bai Erlang and saluted Mr. Zhuang again and again. It should be very good to be able to teach such an outstanding student as Bai Shan. As a young scholar, of course I want to make friends with middle-aged and elderly scholars with qualifications and talents. Therefore, before Bai Shandu formally entered school, he first made 2 friends, the 2 parties even exchanged addresses, and agreed to visit him when he had time. Kang Xiaodong found that Bai Shan's senior sister was much more lively than him, and he talked to her a lot. Of course, he also exchanged addresses with her. Therefore, although they are friends with Bai Shan, their friendship with Man Bao is deeper. When it was their turn to line up, Mr. Zhuang led Bai Shanbao forward and handed in the prepared student status, and the school officer gave them a sign and a piece of paper after checking that they were correct. It says the book they want to buy. Although there is no need to study in the government school, and there is even money to receive it, but it is impossible for the school to provide books and other things, so you have to buy it yourself. The government school does not do this business, so I can only go to the bookstore outside to buy it. This time of year is the best and busiest time for bookstore business. Bai Shanbao looked at the book list, and found that he had most of the books on it, and this time, he and Mr. Zhuang had included them in the book list made by Zhou Lang, so he only needed to check for omissions and fill in the missing ones. Books will do. Bai Shanbao was delighted. Sir, we don't have many books to buy. Mr. Zhuang nodded. After all, the teaching content has remained unchanged for decades, only slightly improved. Of course, the books that need to be bought will not change. Most of Bai Shanbao's current books were passed down to him by his father. His father was originally a jinchi, so he only read more books, not less. And Bai Shan's grandfather was also a scholar, so many of his father's books were handed down by his grandfather, and so on. After thinking about it, Man Bao said, "Second junior brother, do you want to change some very old books? Otherwise, what if they fall apart? You can edit the books." Before Bai Shanbao could speak, Mr. Zhuang said first, "Some annotations in the books of the ancestors are hard to come by, how can you discard them at will?" Man Bao, then what if Bai Shan wants to write notes on it but has no place to write it? Mr. Zhuang tapped her forehead and said, "Naughty, there is no place to write, just clip a piece of paper, why bother with an extra book?" Although Bai Shanbao was also hesitant to buy some new books, but seeing that Man Bao had been knocked on the head, he immediately said, "Mr. is right." The next chapter is around 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 584. After signing up, Bai Shanbao has officially entered the school. Mr. Zhuang directly threw him in the government school and asked him to go to the classroom to get acquainted first, but he took Man Bao and Bai Er away. After losing a disciple, Mr. Zhuang also felt a lot easier. He didn't go home either, but took the man directly to the bookstore, glanced at the busy bookstore and said, "I'll go in and read the books. Man Bao, help Shanbao pick out the books he lacks, and let the shopkeeper open the book later after paying the bill, go back and ask him to pay." He said again, "How are you doing with the homework assigned to you?" Man Bao's scalp tightened, and he immediately said, "We've been writing." Mr. Zhuang nodded, "Although I don't want you to hand it in right away, you can't slack off. If you have any questions, ask your teacher." "Really?" Man Bao asked. "Sir, I've been looking for Li Guang recently. Do you know other books besides historical records and Hanshu that can find him?" Mr. Zhuang was surprised. "Why are you investigating him? Didn't I ask you to write about a courtier who was killed by the court?" "Yes, but the second junior brother and I feel that Li Guang's death is closely related to the Han dynasty at that time, so we want to include him in it." Mr. Zhuang thought for a while and said, "There are some anthologies and history books, but the anthology is different from the history books, and there are many traces of comments from the predecessors. It is unavoidably true, and it is far worse than the history books." Mr. Zhuang made a list of books for Man Bao, handed them to her, and said, "You should read these 3 books first, it will be enough when you finish them. By the way, do you have the money to buy them?" Man Bao blinked. "Should I buy it? Can't you see it here?" Mr. Zhuang was happy when he heard the words, and said with a smile, "No need, just come as you like." He also often does this kind of thing like reading books. Man Bao took 2 book lists to choose books. Mr. Zhuang's eyes fell on Bai Erlang. "Shirajiro." Mr. Zhuang smiled and took out a piece of paper to him. "You didn't ask Zhou Lang to bring the books this time, did you? But it doesn't matter, you can buy them now, and you don't need to buy too much, just buy these for now." Shirajiro. Man Bao selected Bai Shanbao's books, put them in the book basket and handed them to the assistant, and went to find the books she wanted to read. The man was already familiar with her, not because Man Bao came more often than other customers, but because she was a rare woman among the customers who visited the bookstore. Although there will be other little ladies in the bookstore to buy books, most of them just leave after buying, and rarely stay in it. And Man Bao not only came many times, but also came with a young man of a similar age every time, and the two usually stayed for half a day. Occasionally buy some books or pens and papers, not too often. After 2 or 3 times the buddy will remember them. He knew that she would usually buy the books in the book basket. The man took the book basket to the front, put a bamboo stick in the basket for her, and then continued to greet other guests. Man Bao found the few books that the husband mentioned, chose one that seemed more interesting, looked at the price, and found a seat to sit down and read. There are quite a few scholars in the bookstore who read books like him, and the shopkeeper usually doesn't drive away customers, because the customers who come here will buy something. Even if they don't buy it this time, they will buy it next time. Moreover, no one dares to deface books, and they generally cherish them very much. Otherwise, once it is damaged, you have to buy it. No one cared about Man Bao. Man Bao sat down in the seat she usually sat in, and then read with relish. It's a pity that the bookstore doesn't transcribe on the spot, otherwise it would be better for her to copy a copy back. Mr. Zhuang stayed in the bookstore for most of the day, until the afternoon, watching the sunset appearing in the sky, and then led the 2 disciples to check out and go home. Although he had already celebrated once, Mr. Zhuang felt that today was the day when his disciples entered school, so he should go out for a good meal, so he decided to go out for dinner with his family. After returning to the alley, I heard that their house was very lively. The master and apprentice looked at each other and quickly quickened their pace. The gate of the courtyard was wide open, and many people surrounded it. Jojo Lang was taking things out of the sack. It's all grown in my house, everyone, you are welcome. Each of them stuffed a bunch of pods, all of which were fresh, as if they had just been picked today. Arya then put some bundled pods aside, and said, "Fourth uncle, I'll send these to other neighbors." "Go, go," Jojo Lang said to the neighbors who came here with a smile, "we will live here for a long time in the future, please take care of me, I have a lot of children, if there is any disturbance, just talk to me." I said them. Where, the young masters and ladies in the house are all scholars, and it is a kind of enjoyment to just listen to them reading in the yard every day. "Oh, Mr. Zhuang is back." Only then did Jojo Lang see Mr. Zhuang standing behind the crowd, and immediately went up to meet him. "Sir, you are back, and Master Shanbao is also back. Daji is boiling water in the kitchen, do you want to make tea for you?" Mr. Zhuang nodded blankly and greeted his neighbors. Yat also hurried up to greet Mr. Zhuang, then looked at Man Bao happily, and shouted, "Sister-in-law." "Arya, no, Lejun, why are you here?" "Grandpa said let me take care of my sister-in-law," Arya said happily. Man Bao was also very happy when he heard that. He took her hand and said, "That's great, I'll take you to my room." Only then did the neighbors remember to ask Arya's name, knowing that her name was Zhou Lejun, and she had also studied with Mr. Zhuang. The way they looked at her changed for a moment, and they complimented her with a smile. "Is your family a scholar's family after all? Girls can be sent to school to study." Zhou Lejun knew they had misunderstood, but she didn't say anything, just smiled at them innocently. After seeing off this group of neighbors, Zhou Lejun stood at the door and watched them enter the doors of each house, then made a note of the neighbors who hadn't come yet, turned around and filled the remaining pods with a basket to send them off. "My grandma told me before I came here that they will live in Yazhu City for a long time in the future. There are old and young in a house, and there is no headed woman. They will not know if they are bullied in the future, so they have to get along with the neighbors' relationship. It's okay to suffer a little at ordinary times, as long as you don't suffer at a critical moment. That's why they brought a lot of vegetables from home. It's not expensive. They have some at home." It's considerate and not distressing to send out, which is just right. Zhou Lejun knew that his sister-in-law and the other two classmates of the young master were not suitable for such a thing, so he broke the basket and went out, from the end of the alley to the end of the alley. Even the people outside the alley mentioned by the fourth uncle gave a gift. Then he went to the opposite door and knocked. Bai Erlang, who was helping to move things, saw him and said, "Don't knock, there is no one on the other side." Only then did Zhou Lejun take the remaining pods home and asked, "Is the house across the street also for rent?" "I don't know, most of the people in their family were arrested and taken to the county government office, and the remaining two left, so this is an empty house." Bai Erlang looked at the pods in her basket and asked, "What are these?" "Manage. Let's eat by ourselves," Zhou Lejun said with a smile. "We brought a lot of vegetables from home this time, so we don't have to go out to buy vegetables for a while. They didn't buy it in the first place, and they have been eating out, okay. The next update will be around 9 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 585. This time they brought a lot of things, and because there were too many things, Master Bai even sent an extra carriage over. In addition to the things listed on their list, the Bai family also packed a lot of extra things for Bai Shanbao and Bai Erlang. For example, their clothes, shoes, and even quilts were packed into 2 beds, as well as matching pillows, mats, and the like. If it wasn't inconvenient, Mrs. Bai and the others would also like to bring over the desks they are used to at home. Fortunately, Master Bai withstood the pressure in the end. It is said that Mrs. Bai and Mrs. Bai cried so much that their eyes were red and swollen for 3 days because Bai Erlang had to leave home to study. It made Lu and Zhang, who were fine at first, start crying. Then Mrs. Lu called the cook at home, and then they brought more things. Mr. Zhuang rolled up his sleeves to help. "Count all the books I brought and put them on the bookshelves. If the bookshelves are not enough, I have to sort them out and put them in boxes. I will buy bookshelves tomorrow and then put them up. Then the daily necessities brought should also be separated, and then carried back to their respective houses." Because there was an extra cook, their room was not enough, so Bai Erlang moved in to live with Bai Shanbao. The two hated each other. "I want to buy a bed tomorrow." Man Bao nodded at the side. Buy, my area, no, Lejun also wants to buy. "Zhou Lejun, sister-in-law, if you're not used to it, just call me area." Man Bao giggled, called her Lijun several times in a row, and then asked, "Do you want a big bed or a small bed?" Their rooms are not small. They were originally divided into an inner room and an outer room, separated by a screen in the middle. Now they just need to remove the tables and chairs in the room, or move them a little, and put them on the other side of the outer room. Put a bed at the position of the wall, and then move the screen inward to form 2 small rooms. It's almost the same as when Man Bao lived in his parents' room, even more spacious. However, Zhou Lejun already had a strong sense of privacy, so he made a request. "It would be better to put a screen in front of my bed. This will make it much more private." The original layout of 1 bedroom and 1 living room has been changed into 2 small rooms and a small hall, with only a small set of tables and chairs in the middle. But enough for them. After all, their aunt and nephew have been used to living with others since they were young. On the contrary, Bai Shanbao and Bai Erlang were not used to it. They quarreled over the position of the screen and almost had a fight. In the end, Bai Shanbao won with eloquence and force, and successfully suppressed Bai Erlang. Daji ignored them, because it was too late today, and the time was too late, so tonight the cook would make the floor in Manbao's room, and the coachman who came with him lived with him and Zhou Lang, and the extra beds and screens, etc. you have to go out and buy them tomorrow. Mr. Zhuang wanted to go out for dinner, but a cook came at home, and the Zhou family brought a lot of vegetables, including tofu and some semi-finished ingredients made by Xiaoqian. The Bai family also asked the cook to bring some bacon and salted fish, and these ingredients filled half of the kitchen. And the cook quickly steamed the rice, and then started to choose the ingredients for tonight. Not only Mr. Zhuang, but also the three of Manbao were stunned. For some reason, the four masters and apprentices suddenly felt sad, and there was an illusion that the good days in the past were going to be gone forever. Even Zhou Lang, who was busy moving things up and down, quietly said to Daji, he also said that he would eat all the restaurants in Yizhu. Now it's all right, there is no chance. Daji was silent. Zhou Lejun helped tidy things up and praised Manbao, sister-in-law, you've gained weight again. In this day and age, being fat is something to be proud of. Manbao himself obviously inherited the aesthetics of the old Zhou family, puffed up his chest and asked, really? Really, Zhou Lejun said affirmatively, you are all fat. Mr. Zhuang stood aside, put the last book on the box, and sighed, you will lose weight soon. Zhou Lejun was puzzled, why? Because outside dishes are always easier to gain weight. Ah, Zhou Lejun was at a loss. Mr. Zhuang did not continue this topic, but looked at the student who had only studied with him for 2 years, and asked, Mr. Li, have you decided what to do when you come to Yizhu City? Zhou Lejun scratched his head, glanced at Manbao and said, I'm here to take care of my sister, so should I follow her? Mr. Zhuang just smiled and said nothing. But Manbao said, you don't have to follow me all the time, you can do whatever you want. Zhou Lejun whispered, I want to be the accountant. Go find it, Manbao encouraged her, start as an apprentice first, and you must be a big accountant in the future. Mr. Zhuang shook his head and said, shops rarely hire female accountants. It's not easy for you to find such a job. Mr. Zhuang's rhetoric is already considered euphemistic. It is not only difficult for a woman to be a bookkeeper, it is simply an achievement that is difficult to achieve. There are female accountants in some shops, and that is also because they are from my own family, and the accountant is the proprietress. Who would specially invite a woman from outside to be the accountant? But he didn't say anything dead. Even if he said these things, the children might not agree with them, so let them go out and have a try. And he also has a kind of expectation, what if he meets someone he wants? Just like today, who would have thought that a little lady would want to be an accountant? Mr. Zhuang put away his books, glanced at Bai Shanbao and Bai Erlang who were still sorting out the books, and went out with his hands behind his back in satisfaction. Well, go wash your hands first, and then you can drink tea and wait for dinner. Bai Shanbao clicked his books on his own list, and found that there were more books, and he knew that his grandmother packed them for him. He sighed again and again, looks like I have to buy 2 bookshelves tomorrow. In fact, I don't really like to read these books. I didn't expect my grandmother to stuff them in. Bai Erlang wanted to cry more than he did. He squatted in front of his box, picked it up one by one with a bitter face, and arranged them in order of difficulty. He whimpered aggrieved twice, and said, I never asked my father to bring me a book. Manbao took a look and said, just be content, or you'll have to buy everything again, how much will it cost? Manbao was stunned for a moment when he said this, and asked, by the way, didn't Mr. let you buy books today? Why didn't you buy them? You bought so many books, and my husband also bought them. If I buy them again, how can I get them back? So I plan to buy them again in the next few days. Anyway, don't you have to go to the bookstore to read books? Buy one at a time, 1 or 2 books. Bai Shanbao said, are you looking for an excuse to go out and play? But Manbao remembered something, I bought all the books you asked for, and it cost $3, $2, or $6. Bai Shanbao said, I'll give you the money after the dinner. Manbao then asked, by the way, how are you doing in school today? Bai Shanbao sighed and said, don't mention it, I was assigned to class C, I was the youngest in the class, and the school officer in charge of our class didn't like me very much, so he directly put me at the last table. Good night. At the end of the month, these 2 days are very salty fish. No way. Set a goal. Tomorrow must be 5 shifts. Remember to remind me at all times tomorrow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 586. Mr. Zhuang has always arranged seats according to age and height. Back then, Man Bao and the others just entered school, because they were the youngest and shortest, and they sat in front for 2 years. Later, they surpassed by Erlang and other classmates who started their education together, and were transferred to the older students. They were still the youngest and tallest. The shortest, so I changed a row and still sat at the front table. She thought it was the same for government schools. No matter how ambitious Bai Shanbao is, he is only 12 years old, and he is almost a year older than Man Bao, but now he is about the same height as Man Bao. Mr. Zhuang said that he hasn't started to grow tall yet, which means that he is still very short, so there is no need to worry. Man Bao asked, "Is the person sitting in front of you tall?" Bai Shanbao nodded, "It's about the same height as my cousin." Man Bao was full of sympathy, "Then can you see the front?" Bai Shanbao sighed sadly. Man Bao could only sigh sadly, "I don't know if the seat of the government school can be adjusted by myself, otherwise you can discuss it with the classmates in front of you." Bai Shanbao, "I think so too." Man Bao was very curious, "Why doesn't the school officer like you? Did you offend him today?" "No, I haven't spoken to him yet," Bai Shanbao expressed his aggrievedness. "And I didn't talk much today, I only talked to Kong Xiaodong for a while. When he came in, I was obviously sitting at the first table. He directly let me sit in the back, and the seats of the whole class were changed." Man Bao, "Based on grades?" Bai Shanbao said aggrievedly, "No, only 10 of us in Class C have passed the prefectural examination, and the remaining 10 are specially recruited. Even according to the grades, I should sit in the middle instead of sitting in the middle. It's the last table." Although it was the last table near the door, it cannot be denied that he was the last table. And Bai Shan has always felt that although the last table near the door has good lighting, it is also very noisy and the location is not that good. "It's okay, as long as the classroom is not noisy, just sit in the back." Man Bao quickly came out of his worry, and then encouraged him, "Just work harder and get into Class B at the end of the year." Bai Shanbao thought about it, and now there is only this way. Both of them didn't want to tell Mr. Zhuang about this kind of trivial non-school matter, and they felt that they could solve it by themselves. Mr. Zhuang heard it from outside, and he had a way to adjust the seat for him, but he stood still, and after thinking about it for a while, he felt that it was not a bad thing to let nature take its course. They kept busy until it was completely dark before they managed to organize things. The cook also simply cooked a table of dishes, and she set aside some meals to eat with the coachman and Daji in the kitchen. Jojo Lang was not used to it, and after taking a look at Mr. Zhuang, he dragged them to the edge of the table and said, "There is no such thing as being so particular about going out. We used to eat together." Mr. Zhuang also nodded, "There is no need to pay attention to so much, you should sit down together." The cook panicked, "Well, how can this work? How can we sit down when the master eats?" After finishing speaking, he looked at Daji. Daji looked at his young master. Bai Shanbao also nodded and said, "Sit down, you don't have to pay so much attention when you are away from home." The cook then sat down tremblingly. Zhou Lijun whispered to my sister-in-law, "Sister-in-law, where do you go to fetch water here? Do you carry water to wash your clothes, or where do you go to wash them? You don't need to pick well water. The ancient well is too far away from us. There is a special water delivery service at the door, and it's not expensive. Just buy as much as you need every day." Man Bao said in a low voice, clothes are washed by the river. It's not far from here, just cross the street and go to the alley opposite, just turn the corner. There is a river passing through the street, which is the living water flowing in from the moat. He said again, our clothes are all washed by ourselves after we freshen up in the evening. Zhou Lejun said, leave this kind of thing to me in the future, sister, you need to study, and it will take more time. Man Bao shook his head, no, we have to do it ourselves, the laundry doesn't take long. Bai Erlang on the side nodded again and again, yes, it's not long. They only need to wash their own clothes, and then take turns to wash their husband's clothes every 2 days. It doesn't take long, and they can go out to play more. Even Bai Shanbao, who is busy with schoolwork now, nodded, it was rare to play in the water openly, how could he not go? The three of them looked at each other, lowered their heads and snickered like three little foxes, which made Zhou Lejun very puzzled, what is there to be happy about doing laundry? But she didn't force it, she had to wash clothes since she was a child, and she didn't want to do it yet. Zhou Lang turned to her and said, you help fourth uncle wash it? He didn't dare to ask Man Bao to wash his clothes, otherwise his father would kill him if he found out, so he always washed his clothes by himself, and he thought it was a waste of time. Now it's just right that area is here. Zhou Lejun nodded in response, but also made a request, fourth uncle, take me out for a walk tomorrow to get acquainted with Yazhu city. Okay, I just want to go shopping tomorrow, then asked the three younger ones, are you going out together tomorrow? Bai Shanbao said, I'm going to school. Bai Erlang was disappointed, I haven't finished my homework yet, tomorrow is the last day. Man Bao, I'd better go to the bookstore. I only read half of the books I read today. I'll be silent for a while. I have to finish the rest tomorrow. Bai Shanbao asked, is it about Li Guang? Man Bao nodded. Bai Shanbao said, there are a lot of books in the school, but unfortunately only the students in class can borrow them out. If we want to read them, we can only go in and read them or copy them. You can give me the titles of the remaining books and I will go to the library to find them. If there are, I will copy some important ones and come back for you to read. Man Bao was pleasantly surprised, can you copy the books of the government school? Yes, as long as you don't deface the books, you have to take the pen, ink, paper, and inkstone with you. Man Bao was very envious, it would be great if I could also go to the library of the government school to copy books. So what kind of books does she want? When Mr. Zhuang heard this, he lowered his eyes. Most of the books he had were copied from the government schools by himself, and only a small part were bought from bookstores. In particular, some books cannot be bought in bookstores, so they can only be copied from government schools. Therefore, Mr. Zhuang encourages students to copy books by themselves. In order to exercise their ability to copy books, his favorite method of punishment is copying books. To copy neatly, the speed should be faster, and the error rate should be controlled. Only in this way, when they have the opportunity to get in touch with the books that need to be copied, they can get started quickly. Look, isn't there a chance now? Mr. Zhuang ate in silence, which did not prevent them from exchanging ideas on copying books. I've been so busy these past few days, I forgot that the 23rd day of the 7th month of the lunar calendar is the birthday of the two cuties, and I also forgot to add a new birthday to them. I just discovered it last night. It's really well, although the blessings come late, let us wish the book friends Plum Blossom Fragrance and Acacia Doe 1968 a happy birthday, and wish you more and more beautiful and happy every day. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 587. The three little ones were busy, and of course Mr. Zhuang was also busy. Early in the morning, he taught Man Bao a class, and after he taught a text, he let her study by herself. For her, he has always been more at ease. Although this child is lazy occasionally, he is still self-disciplined, so the occasional laziness is tolerable. Bai Erlang couldn't do it anymore. If he didn't look at him, he would wait until the sky fell before remembering to study and do his homework. So Manbao memorized the text he had just learned, wrote for a while, and then went to the bookstore to read. Mr. Zhuang warned, "I have to come back for lunch." Manbao agreed, and went out with his little cloth bag on his back. The cook is busy in the kitchen. She went to the morning market this morning. She is planning to tidy up the kitchen and provide them with refreshments and tea in the future. After Daji sent Bai Shanbao to school, he came back to go shopping with Jojo Lang and Arya. The driver of the Bai family took the dry food and went back early in the morning. Of course, he brought the letters from the little masters with him. When Manbao first arrived at the bookstore, Jojo Lang and the others had already selected 2 beds and were selecting bookshelves. Generally, this kind of large-scale furniture is custom-made, and there are very few ready-made ones, so new large-scale furniture will be very expensive. But there are also old ones. Although Daji is a servant, he really doesn't understand this kind of thing. So under the leadership of Jojo Lang, he detoured 2 streets, took 3 more alleys, and arrived at a very strange place. Jojo Lang led them to a shop. Daji couldn't help but looked up, surprised. "Pawn shop? Yeah, the things here are cheap, come on, let's go in and choose." Daji, he only knew that when he was short of money, he could bring things to the pawn shop to exchange for money, but he didn't expect to be able to buy things from the pawn shop. He hesitated. "Aren't the things in here very expensive?" "Except for some antiques, everything else is second-hand. How can it be expensive?" Jojo Lang explained. "Used things like pawn clothes and quilts are very cheap. There are also some tables, chairs, and benches, even if they are made of good wood. That's also much cheaper than the new custom-made ones. Not to mention things like beds, which are more than half cheaper than those sold outside. Of course, the price recovered by the pawn shop is also kept very low. Basically, if you come to the pawn shop to pawn, you can get 1/3 of the price and it is considered a high price." Although Jojo Lang came here for the first time, he seemed to be very familiar with the pawn shop guy. When he entered the pawn shop, the boy came up to him with a smile and shouted, "Brother Joe, I have talked to the shopkeeper. Take you to the warehouse." Jojo Lang stepped forward and put his shoulders on his shoulders, and asked with a smile, "You have to choose better things for me, especially the bookshelves, those books are precious." "Well, it will be bad if it hits someone who is studying." "Brother Joe, don't worry, our store has always been honest, and with me here, the things for you must be the best." The boy took them to the warehouse, opened the door of the warehouse and led them in. There were large pieces of wood products inside. Beds, tables, and chairs, bookshelves, and even treasure shelves. There are a lot of things piled up inside, which is fairly neat. The boy said, "This is all collected this month, and the previous ones have been sent out, so if you want to choose, you can only choose from here. Their pawn shop is only in the business of collecting, and the sales are handed over to other shops of the owner. Things like clothes and quilts are usually washed and dried before being placed in the shop for people to choose, while large items like beds are of good quality, and they can be sold at a discount after being washed, although they are not as good as new ones. Made to order, but not bad looking. If the quality is average or not good, simply repair it and sell it at a discounted price. It will be cheaper if you take it directly from the pawn shop." It was precisely because Jojo Lang knew this that he brought Daji and Arya here on purpose. The 3 of them began to pick out in the warehouse, and there was a bed where Jo Lejun was asleep, so she was mainly picking. Jojo Lang and Daji mainly pick bookshelves. There are also many good bookshelves in the warehouse, and even 2 are made of very good ash. Of course, the price is also very gratifying. So Jo Lang eliminated it directly. Daji was a little moved, and persuaded in a low voice, The price is very cheap for such a good wood. Zhou Lang said, "We are studying with you in Yizhu. We will leave when your young master is admitted to the capital. Why do you need such a good bookshelf?" Daji was taken aback, and said, "This will take 4 or 5 years, right?" Now Zhou Lang was stunned. "Will it take so long? I thought it would only take 2 or 3 years. Daji, you really have confidence in my young master, thank you." Zhou Lang reacted and said, "Whether he is 2 or 3 years or 4 or 5 years, anyway, he is not very old, so there is no need to buy a good bookcase, otherwise you will not be able to move it back home, and it will be difficult not to sell it. Might as well buy a cheaper one." He said, "Anyway, it won't be bad, and it looks about the same." Zhou Lang looked at several bookshelves back and forth, and found that except for a slight difference in color, they were really similar, so he nodded in satisfaction and said, "Yes, they are similar, so let's choose these two, which are cheap and strong, easy to use." Daji, the money is held by Zhou Lang, what can he say? Zhou Lijun also chose 2 beds. Considering the limited space and sleeping alone, the 2 beds she chose were not big, but they looked solid and beautiful. Daji also chose 2 screens. His aesthetics was much better than Zhou Lang's, and he knew that these things could not be compromised, especially if they were placed in the young master's room. Otherwise, if he doesn't like it, I'm afraid he won't be in a good mood when he wakes up. One of the screens was placed in front of Zhou Lijun's bed, and she immediately fought for herself. "Fourth uncle, sister-in-law is picky. If you buy ugly ones and go back, what if she won't let you in?" Zhou Lang could only take a step back, but his heart still ached. 2 screens are more expensive than a bed. I knew I would ask my second brother to make them with bamboo at home and ship them. "Fourth uncle, you've become picky too. This is Chai Migi who is not in charge of the family, okay?" Seeing that they had made the choice, the young man went forward to settle the accounts. Zhou Lang was quite satisfied with the calculation. Although the screen was a bit more expensive, the bed and bookshelves were really much cheaper than what they had estimated. "There's an ox cart parked outside, I'll get someone to come in and move it," said the boy. Thursday Lang went to check out, and today's expenses were far lower than their budget, so there was a lot of money left. If it weren't for the cook at home, Zhou Lang really wanted to take the money and go to the street to buy some sauced meat and go back to celebrate. But thinking of having a cook at home, he still restrained himself, not daring to go too far. After transporting the things home and putting the beds in 2 rooms, Zhou Lijun fetched water to scrub the beds, and the cook also came to help. After the bed was dry, the 2 of them made their own beds, and Bai Erlang's bed was also made, and by the way, he put away his messy toys and other things, put them in boxes, and pushed them to the bed under. Next update around 4 p.m. Add more to the birthday of 2 little cuties. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 588. Man Bao saw what he was looking for, and after reading it back and forth a few times, he closed the book gently, closed his eyes and recited it silently, opened it again to deepen his memory, and then continued to read down. Her reading speed is not slow, and occasionally encounters difficult words that she has never seen before, or it is too awkward, she will ask Keek in her heart. Keek was bored. Although it was not his duty, he would search for her casually. If he could find it, he would tell her. If he couldn't find it, then she could only write it down and go back to ask Mr. Zhuang. But in most cases, she felt that she had written down the word, and when she went back, she would still forget what it looked like. After all, I don't know the sound or the meaning of the words, so it's really hard to remember. The more books she read, the more she realized that there were still many words she didn't know. So she couldn't help but said to Keek in her heart, "I feel that I am already very good. My husband also said that I can read 1,000 characters after reading 1,000 characters, but now it seems that I still don't know many characters. Keek encouraged, then host, come on, but you should also pay attention to rest while studying. The Dragon Boat Festival is approaching. Doesn't the host consider going for a walk in the wild? Manbao laughed when he heard it, and asked in his heart, you miss the flowers and plants outside, don't you? Coco didn't answer. Manbao said generously, don't worry, we will definitely have a holiday during the Dragon Boat Festival. We will go to the riverside to have a look at that time. Generally, there are many good things by the riverside. I don't know the riverside here and our village. The riverside is different. Keek silently thought, I hope it is different. Manbao doesn't want them to be the same either. She turned to the next page and continued to read. The scholar at the side glanced at her several times. Seeing that she was reciting quickly and silently, he closed the book and closed his eyes to recite silently after a while. He couldn't help but put down the book in his hand. Manbao noticed his gaze and turned his head to look. When the other party saw her looking over, he lowered his head in embarrassment. After thinking about it, she felt something was wrong, so she raised her head to look at her, and asked in a low voice, why don't you buy the book and read it, little lady? Expensive. The other party was stunned for a moment, looked at the book in her hand, and asked, is it very expensive? Manbao nodded, if you buy this book, you will have to buy the next one. It will naturally become more expensive if you add it up, so I won't buy books that are not necessary. He actually felt that it made sense. Is it difficult for the little lady's family? It's okay. Manbao glanced at his clothes, nodded his head and said, but it must be poorer than your family. He also glanced at the gorgeous clothes on his body, feeling a little embarrassed. He closed the book in his hand, and said in a low voice, the student studying in Xiafu, Long Zhou Weiken, who did the young lady read the book with? She is so good. I think you can memorize it after a few silent readings. My husband's surname is Chuang, Manbao said, I'll memorize it if I don't have one, but I can remember it for more than half a day. After a long time, I will forget most of it. Wei Chen was stunned and asked, then you still recite? I recited it back and wrote it silently. When I need it for my homework, and I wrote it silently, I can remember it after reading it a few more times in the future. Wei Chen frowned, and said in a low voice, in this way, wouldn't it take advantage of the bookstore? That's right, so I buy all my pens and inks from here. No matter how cheap they are, I won't buy them from outside. Wei Chen. Manbao turned to the next page, and then remembered, you are a student of the government school, why don't you go to class? Wei Chen said, I still have a lot of books to buy, so I didn't go. Hey, are you also a student who just got admitted this year? Wei Chen hesitated for a moment, but still nodded. Manbao asked curiously, then which class are you in? Class C, Class 1. Manbao's eyes lit up, he couldn't help but sat up straight, and asked, then where are you? Wei Chen blushed slightly, and whispered, I was directly recommended by the county magistrate, so I don't need to take an exam. Oh, what row and table do you sit at? Although Wei Chen found it strange, he still said, I'm sitting at the third table in the second row. Manbao looked him up and down, and seeing that he was quite tall, he smiled brightly at him. Wei Chen was attracted by her smile, and subconsciously smiled back, and the two became friends. Manbao took his book list and asked, what other books do you not find? Wei Chen pointed to him in a daze. Manbao returned the book in his hand, and said, I'll help you find it. I'm very good at finding books. Some of the books in the bookstore are arranged in order, while others are out of order and very chaotic. Even the shopkeepers and clerks in the store couldn't tell where some books were, or whether they had them in their bookstores. In addition to helping them find some common books with ease, what they said more was, look for it yourself. If it's not here, then it's over there. If it's not there, it's sold out. And whether it is sold out, or there is no stock at all, only God knows. But Man Bao has been in this bookstore for nearly a month, and sometimes he doesn't read books at all, but just goes from one bookshelf to another with Bai Shanbao, and when he sees a name he is interested in, he takes out a few pages to read, and then puts them back. They didn't even spare the bamboo slips on the wall, mainly because they really wanted to find the remaining Shui Jingzhu from it. It's a pity that Shui Jingzhu was not found, but I have a general impression of the books in the bookstore. In the book list given by the government school, there are some books that are often used, which are easy to find, but there are also some books that are not commonly used. There are a few of them. Man Bao bought them for Bai Shanbao just yesterday, so he looked for them very well, and handed them to him. Even though she didn't know where the rest of the books were, she still had a general impression, so she could find them if she searched slowly. Wei Chen blankly carried the book basket and followed her as she wandered among the bookshelves, and within a short while picked up a large book basket. Man Bao helped him pick up all the books, and the two book baskets couldn't hold them. Of course, the price was very expensive. These books required by government schools are teaching materials, and they are more expensive than ordinary books. She watched Wei Chen put down the 5 ingots of silver, and couldn't help but feel sorry for him. You should ask about the classes you will be taking this year, and then buy the textbooks you need this year. But she glanced at the clothes on his body, and asked puzzledly, your family looks rich, and there should be books at home, why do you have to buy everything again? Oh, I didn't bring any books when I came here, Wei Chen said confidently, it's a long way from Longzhou to Yizhu, so it's tiring to bring so many books. Man Bao stopped feeling sorry for him, and sighed, your family is really rich. Wei Chen smiled modestly, it's okay, it's okay. After paying the bill, Wei Chen waved outside, and a man who looked like a servant ran up immediately, carrying a book basket in one hand, and went out. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 589. Seeing her curiosity, Wei Chen said, this is my servant boy's house. Man Bao asked curiously, do you live in the government school, or outside? Wei Chen sighed, we came late, and all the good houses in the vicinity have been rented out. Now I can only live in the government school temporarily, thinking about renting out when there is a vacant house. Then where does your boy live? Him. He shared a room with someone outside Kangxiu Street. Man Bao heard Zhou Lang talk about that kind of house, which is a datong shop, and there may be 7 or 8 people living there, all rented by people who came to Yizhu City to find work. Man Bao nodded, and said enthusiastically, I'll send you to the government to study. There are so many books, and it's hard for you to hold them. No, no, we have carriages. Yes, yes, the books are so heavy, it's troublesome to move them up and down. Wei Chen finally came to his senses, this little lady is so attentive for some other purpose, right? He looked at her figure, well, it only reached his chest, she looked very young, only 11 or 12 years old. At such a young age, you shouldn't think too much, right? I thought so, but seeing that Man Bao was so enthusiastic about sending him off and finding so many books for him just now, Wei Chen couldn't help but miss it. His face turned red, he hesitated for a while, and said in a low voice, Miss Zhou, I have a fiancé. Hey, do you have a fiancé? I thought you were already married and had children. You look about the same age as my 6th brother. But my 6th brother didn't marry a wife. Man Bao didn't react for a while, and said chatteringly asked, is your fiancé pretty? She looked at Wei Chen's face first, and said, you look okay, your fiancé shouldn't be too bad, right? Wei Chen realized that he was thinking too much. And Man Bao also came back to it belatedly. She blinked and looked at Wei Chen, until his face was red. Man Bao smiled and explained, "Brother Wei, actually I just want to make friends with you. My second junior brother is also studying in the government school. Coincidentally, he is also in Class C." Wei Chen widened his eyes slightly and asked, "What's his name?" "Bai Shan." "Oh, it's him, I recognize him." Wei Chen immediately regained his enthusiasm, and said with a smile, "He is the youngest in our class, and he passed the exam on his own. Class C is also a celebrity." Yes, you see, we are already friends, and you and my second junior brother happen to be classmates, so are you also friends?" Wei Chen got rid of the knot in his heart, and became happy, and nodded with a smile, "It's a friend. Then let's go together, I just happened to pick up my second junior brother home." Wei Chen readily agreed, and after inviting Man Bao into the car, he looked at her suspiciously, "You look younger than Bai Shan, but are you actually older than him?" "No, I'm younger than him." "Wei Chen, then why do you call him junior brother?" "He started later than me," Man Bao said with a smug smile, "below us there is a third junior brother who is older than us." "Wei Chen, it's really nice to honor the teacher. The disciples who are accepted are all from childhood to adulthood by such a coincidence." Man Bao thought about it, and it was true. Fortunately, Bai Erlang is not smart enough. Seriously speaking, Bai Erlang was the first among the three of them to study with his husband, but he didn't worship the entrance wall. And she was the second one, and Bai Shanbao was the last one to come. Thinking of this, Man Bao couldn't help pursing her lips and laughing. She couldn't hold back the smile all the way to the entrance of the school, and she looked very happy. The school has just started, and there are many people like Wei Chen who haven't bought all the books, or who don't go to school with various excuses, so the gate of the school is still very lively today. Wei Chen generously invited Man Bao to study in the mansion. "Do you want to go in and find your younger brother?" Man Bao nodded again and again. "Outsiders can't easily enter, they have to have a sign to enter. Otherwise, someone with a sign has to carry it." Wei Chen took Man Bao and Tong's family in with a sign, and the three of them carried 2 large baskets of books to the dormitory supervisor. Wei Chen, who hadn't done much work, was even worse than Man Bao. He was so tired that he couldn't help rubbing his arms. Wei Chen simply acted as the hands-off shopkeeper, found 2 books from inside, put them under his arms, and said, "Tongjia, put these books neatly, and I will take Miss Zhou to find the classroom." The Tong family answered yes. Man Bao hadn't been to the dormitory supervisor's side last time. He looked at the scenery along the road curiously. There were obviously more vegetation here than the previous teaching place. Along the way, Keek reported several times that he found plants that were not included in the collection. Man Bao looked at it several times, but resisted not reaching out to pull it out. When they walked outside the classroom, the bell rang. Wei Chen looked up at the position of the sun and said, "School is over." As soon as the words were finished, a gentleman walked out of the classroom holding a book with a serious face. Wei Chen quickly stood aside, bowed his head and waited for him to pass by. The gentleman glanced at him, saw Man Bao, frowned slightly, but didn't say anything, just nodded slightly and left quickly. As soon as the teacher left, the classroom immediately became lively. Some people came out with books, but more people stayed in the classroom to talk. When Man Bao walked to the back door of Class C, he saw Bai Shanbao cleaning the table alone. Man Bao tiptoed forward, but before he started barking, Bai Shanbao suddenly turned his head viciously, causing Man Bao to say aloudly in fright. Bai Shanbao didn't expect it to be Man Bao, and was also taken aback. He sat down on the stool, was stunned for a moment, and then said angrily, "Why are you shouting so loudly?" Man Bao was not convinced. "You still startled me." Wei Chen standing aside, "By the way, aren't you brothers and sisters?" Is it really okay to quarrel as soon as we meet? Bai Shanbao frowned and asked, how did you get in? My friend brought me in. Man Bao remembered Wei Chen, and quickly introduced them. Brother Wei, that's what I said, my junior, your classmate, Bai Shan. Then he said to Bai Shanbao, this is Wei Chen, we just met at the bookstore. Wei Chen smiled and bowed to Bai Shanbao, brother Bai, I have known you for a long time. Bai Shanbao took a look at his smile, his face became warmer, and he also saluted, brother Wei is polite, please forgive me for disturbing my senior sister. Man Bao, I didn't bother, we are helping each other. No, Miss Zhou helped me, but I didn't help Miss Zhou at all. Man Bao, you are older than us, and it will be helpful for you to take care of my junior brother in the government school in the future. Wei Chen, we are classmates, we are supposed to help each other, it's not worth mentioning by Mrs. Zhou. Bai Shanbao saw them coming and going and chatting lively, and everyone in the classroom had already looked over, so he couldn't help interrupting their conversation and said, I packed all my things, let's talk while walking. I wish the little cute plum blossom fragrance a happy birthday. Although it is a late blessing, I still wish her all the best and be happy every day. The next update will be around 9 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 590. Bai Shan looked at Wei Chen curiously for a while, and finally dug him out from yesterday's memory, so he was very curious, how did these two become friends in one day? But it doesn't matter, what matters is that this guy doesn't seem to know that he is being targeted by the school officer, so that most of the classmates also isolate him. Bai Shanbao rolled his eyes, and greeted Wei Chen enthusiastically, I don't know where brother Wei is from. My ancestral home is Longzhou, and I grew up in Mianzhou. Then we are both from Jianese Road. Wei Chen was also very enthusiastic. He hadn't had time to make friends since he entered school yesterday, and he didn't know anyone except a classmate in the same dormitory. The student in the same dormitory is not from their class C, so. Wei Chen introduced himself, I'm from Longzhou. Speaking of which, Longzhou is not far from Mianzhou. Well, it's closer than Mianzhou. Bai Shanbao looked at the books in his hand and asked, brother Wei didn't come to class today, did he go to buy books? Yes, thanks to Miss Zhou's help, otherwise I might have to look for it for half a day tomorrow. Bai Shanbao grinned and said, actually, the teacher didn't give much lectures today, but let us read and practice calligraphy by ourselves. There are also other students in the class who didn't come to the class, but went to buy books. I guess it will take 3 or 2 days before the class can officially start. Needless to say, Wei Chen really breathed a sigh of relief. Bai Shanbao kindly invited him to their house as a guest, and said, the teacher has studied in the government school, and he knows some things best. If brother Wei has any questions, you should ask the teacher. Wei Chen's heart skipped a beat. Man Bao glanced at Bai Shanbao, and also warmly invited, go, Aunt Rong must have cooked a lot of delicious food today. Aunt Rong is their cook. Wei Chen was even more moved. He thought for a while and said, I have to tell the Tong family, otherwise he should panic if he can't find me. Man Bao, then we'll wait for you outside the gate. Okay, Wei Chen responded, turned around and walked quickly to the dormitory supervisor. It's the first time you come to the house as a guest, and you always have to bring some gifts. Fortunately, when he came to Yizhu City, his father prepared a lot of good things for him, some of which were specially used as gifts. The ones given to the school officials before were not used up, and they just happened to be used at the moment. Man Bao followed Bai Shanbao out of the government school, and Daji had already pulled the carriage and stopped on the opposite side of the road to wait. Seeing Man Bao follow Bai Shanbao out of the government school, he was surprised. After the two greeted Daji, they leaned against the side of the carriage and talked. Man Bao was very puzzled, why are you so enthusiastic about Wei Chen? Didn't you introduce us to each other? Yes, but I didn't expect you to be so enthusiastic after all. We grew up together, although Bai Shan is usually playful and lively, but when facing outsiders, he thinks it's very natural, it's not necessary, he won't take the initiative to speak. Moreover, he is very wary of strangers, and hardly takes the initiative to make friends. Every time he speaks, he is either brought by Man Bao, or he has been watching for a long enough time, and he will only speak when he thinks he can speak. But just now, he didn't let Man Bao take him with him, and he took the initiative to make friends with Wei Chen. This is very abnormal. Bai Shanbao looked around, then snorted and said, I don't know how to attract the attention of the school officer and classmates, they don't talk to me very much, only Kong Xiaodong would occasionally come to talk to me talk. Although Bai Shanbao doesn't like to talk to strangers very much, the feeling of not liking to talk is not the same as being deliberately targeted for not talking to him. And he had a deep memory of this kind of thing when he was a child, and he felt it keenly as soon as it appeared. Being isolated and targeted by others, you don't feel it when you don't know it, but once you know it, you will definitely feel uncomfortable. So Bai Shanbao was not in a good mood all day today. If it was a child, no matter how uncomfortable he felt in his heart, he would hold back, and then return those people's disdain, and then call back when they came up to make trouble. But this time, although he will still return his disdain, he will no longer care as much as he did when he was young, and will always take it to heart, so that he is panicked and angry. Originally, he wanted to talk to his husband when he went back, but when he saw Man Bao and Wei Chen, he changed his mind immediately. Isn't it isolation? Who is afraid of whom? There will be an exam in the middle of the year, and there will be a big exam at the end of the year. The results are not only related to the class placement in the coming year, but also related to whether they can continue to stay in the government school. If they fail the exam twice in a row, the student will be expelled from the government school and return to his hometown to continue. Bai Shandao, right now the only person in the class who is willing to talk to me is Kong Xiaodong, but we are just casual acquaintances, he can't offend others because of me. It just so happens that another Wei Chen came, I just need 2 friends in the class, others dare not bully me too much. Bai Shan sneered, we'll wait until the mid-year exam. Isn't that a small exam? You have to wait until the end of the year exam to be divided into classes, right? Then what if my grades are among the best? Bai Shan said, I've already thought about it. If my grades are really good, I'll go to Master Lan, and I'll make connections when I should. I won't be bothered with those people. People care about it? Man Bao applauded, well said, a group of mentally handicapped people who can only play in isolation, we don't need to care about them. Then I'll help you, Man Bao thought for a while, you go back and copy down your class schedule, I will accompany you to read the books, I will learn from the teacher, check for omissions and fill in the gaps, and help you find information from the bookstore. If you don't believe me, you won't pass them. Bai Shanbao was also ambitious, he stretched out his hand, it's a deal. Man Bao patted his palm, and said loudly, a gentleman promises, and 4 horses are hard to catch. Wei Chen happened to come out with the Tong family, seeing this, he asked, what are you doing? It's nothing, let's go, are you going to drive the carriage by yourself, or take my house? Let the Tong family follow with the carriage. Wei Chen followed them into the carriage and talked. When did you come to Yizhu? Wei Chen said, I went to the city 7 or 8 days earlier, but I couldn't rent a yard. I was living in an inn before. Man Bao said, we arrived more than a month earlier, and the houses on Kangxiu Street are so tight now. Wei Chen sighed, it is said that there are more students enrolled this year than in previous years, and most of them chose to live outside. Unlike previous years, most of the students from other places will choose to live in the dormitory supervisor. Man Bao sighed, it seems that the newly enrolled students this year are very rich. Wei Chen gave them a strange look and said, aren't you rich too? Otherwise, he wouldn't be renting a house to live outside. You must know that he has to live in the dormitory supervisor now. Manbao and Bai Shanbao looked at each other, smiled, and said modestly, "We are not rich, but lucky, lucky. I wish the book friend Xiang Saidu 1968 a happy birthday. Every year there will be today, every year will have the present, and the younger you live, the younger you will be." Well, I really am a sycophant. Originally, I wanted to update the 6th chapter at Moyen's request, but I didn't take a nap today, I was too tired, so I decided to continue with the 5th chapter tomorrow. Good night.